Hi, I'm David Scott, Director of Pinellas County's Department of Environment and Infrastructure under the Board of County Commissioners. You know, we experience approximately 50 inches of rainfall on average annually here in Pinellas County. And while much of this rain soaks into the ground, much more of it runs off from your driveway along the streets into drainage pipes and eventually to open bodies of water like this lake behind me here in Pinellas County's Walsingham Park. Along that journey, rainwater picks up fertilizer, pesticides, animal waste, oils and pollutants, materials that don't belong in our lakes, our rivers, or along our seashores. Open bodies of water are fed by watersheds, and wherever you live, work or play in Pinellas County, you live, work, and play in a watershed. Wherever you are, the ground around you is part of the dynamic drainage process that carries water from the sky to our waterways. Coming up on a new eTownHall, you'll meet a panel of experts who will answer your questions about what we can do as a community to keep our watersheds clean. So join the conversation and find out how our actions in our everyday lives can affect not only our local water quality, but our economy, our tourism industry, our ecology, our very quality of life. From your backyard to the water's edge, it's our responsibility to keep our watersheds clean. Find out how you can help. Enjoy tonight's eTownHall.
Thanks, David, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to Pinellas County's eTownHall, Watershed, where we live, work, and play. I'm Len Ciecieznski with the Pinellas County Communications Department, and I'll be your moderator for this evening's eTownHall. Thanks once again for joining us. Tonight, we're here to talk to you about our environment, specifically our watersheds, and how what you do every day affects the health of our most important asset, our water. As DEI Director David Scott just pointed out, our watersheds have a direct impact on our quality of life. Now, the term quality of life may be an overused expression, but tonight, we want to refocus our understanding of quality of life. We want to help you understand how the health of our watersheds is connected to everything that provides that high quality of life everyone wants. And that includes understanding how our individual daily behaviors have a long-term impact on how we live, work, and play here in Pinellas County, and for that matter, the entire Tampa Bay region. Now, to do that, we have a great panel here to explain the dynamics of the issues, to answer your questions, and to provide you with the resources so you can make better everyday choices. Joining us first is Kelli Levy, the DEI Environmental Division Manager for Watershed Management. Kelli, how are you?
I'm very good, thank
Welcome
you.
To tonight's program. Next to her is Pinellas County resident Liz Drayer. And Liz, you're going to provide us with the stay-at-home mom point of view. Obviously, your children will be inheriting what we create here in this environment. Terry Tomalin is to my right. You all know him. He's the outdoors and fitness editor with the Tampa Bay Times. Terry, welcome to the program. Good to have you on board. Also, let's see, we have Nanette O'Hara here. She's the outreach coordinator for Tampa Bay Estuary program. Nanette, I know you guys do such a good job at that organization, and we'll be talking to you a lot during tonight's program.
Thank you, I think.
On my left over here, we have Jane Morse, commercial horticulture extension agent with Pinellas County Extension, along with Dale Armstrong, coordinator of the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program at Pinellas Extension. Hello to you guys. Welcome on board. Good to have you here. Over to my right here, Mike Meidel, the Director of Pinellas County Economic Development. He is the expert on what's happening economically speaking in Pinellas County. Next to him is David Downing, Assistant Director and Public Relations Manager with Visit St. Petersburg, Clearwater.
Thanks for having us.
And David, of course, you know what brings the tourists in to visit Pinellas County. We'll be talking lots about that.
Do.
Okay, all right. Well, now, our panel is ready to take your questions, so keep blogging, keep tweeting, or start calling. I have my laptop right here. As soon as you send it in, I'll get it posted in front of me, and we'll discuss it with our guests. But first, we want to give you some background for our discussion. Now, we hope you've had a chance to review the resources and web links we've provided here on the eTownHall website. Again, understanding our watershed systems is the key to understanding how you affect the environment around you. Now, back in September, eTownHall producer Libby Bowling and photojournalist Tony Smith went back to school, so to speak, and they learned that when it comes to water, everything's connected.
Tampa Bay in the 1970s was considered dead. It was a poster child for a 60 Minutes expose on nutrient pollution in in the United States.
Natural resource managers, community officials, scientists, educators, and citizens all gathered at Brooker Creek Preserve for Pinellas County Extension's Tri-County Water School. Bringing together Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough County, the two-day event was designed to share information and problem-solve current and future issues concerning our water supply and our water quality. Extension's role in bringing research and information from the University of Florida to the public made for a high-quality experience. South Central District Extension Director Charlie Vavrina explains.
It's really very deep in terms of the number of resources that we have. You can see here Chris Martinez is from Agricultural and Biological Engineering. We have a number of folks from Civil and Coastal Engineering that are involved with water. Our soil and water scientists on campus are very involved with water. We have policy people at Food and Resource Economics that are involved with water. So across the breadth of water, we have a lot of resources at the University of Florida to provide information.
On day one of the water school, panels fielded questions on a variety of issues, and participants got hands-on as they learned about drainage systems, land use management, and the idea that everything we do on and to the land affects our multiple watersheds, reinforcing the need for a regional approach to water quality issues.
Well, from a watershed perspective, watersheds do not follow political boundaries. Watersheds overlap those boundaries, and so we all have a stake in some of the same resources, and we need to have common goals and common solutions for some of our pollution problems that follow watershed boundaries and not political boundaries.
And those pollution problems arise out of a lack of understanding by the average person, according to Natural Resources Extension agent Lara Miller.
And that's really the issue that we face, is that people just don't have the connection to the water that we need. And that's really what we're trying to establish, is when you're, just brushing your teeth, where does that water go? Where does your water come from? It's these simple things that people don't really realize, and maybe if they did, they'd do things a little bit differently.
And doing things a little bit differently can have a huge impact on our water quality and our ability to meet new, stricter federal and state regulations. Regulations that carry hefty fines for local governments with violations.
Basically, when we don't meet water quality standards, the EPA or the DEP, the state agency, has to develop a total maximum daily load, and that's the maximum amount of a pollutant that can go into a water body and allow that water body to still meet its water quality standards. So oftentimes it'll be developed into a % reduction. And all the stakeholders that are involved in putting some of these pollutants into the water bodies, and the Pinellas County Watershed Management, we are in charge of our stormwater permit. So that's how we're involved. We have to develop ways to reduce our stormwater runoff and the concentration of pollutants in that runoff to meet these TMDLs.
As the saying goes, every little bit helps. But in this case, every little bit of effort helps reduce the pollutants in our watershed and ultimately our greatest natural resource, our water.
Well, thanks, Libby. And obviously, everything is connected. And Kelly, that was a great way of showing the interconnection between water and all our waterways and all the people that live here. But, this program actually is the start of a big public relations and educational campaign that the county is rolling out to give people more information about watersheds, as we said at the beginning, so they can make better decisions. But I wanted to start this show off with perhaps a little bit of an explanation of what is a watershed. I think if you talk to 20 people at the mall, you would get 20 different answers to the question, what is a watershed? So, Kelly, in 25 words or less, let's describe the word so that everybody can understand it, so that they'll know what we're talking about when we talk about that watershed tonight's program.
Okay. Watershed is an area of land, so when it rains, all the water that hits the land runs to a common point. So the water hits the ground, it follows the gravity. If you dropped a ping pong ball, it would follow the same path, and it ends up in the nearest water body of water. So if it's in the Lake Tarpon watershed, everything in that area drains to Lake Tarpon. If it's in the Lake Seminole watershed, everything in that area drains to Lake Seminole.
And so basically, every square foot of Pinellas County is a watershed.
Absolutely.
And that includes your backyard, your front yard, every place you are. So, ergo, our theme, whether you live, work, or play in Pinellas County, you're doing that right on top of this watershed, right in the middle of this watershed. So that's what we're talking about. And actually, we have a little bit of a contest we'd like to tell you about here. We'd like you to send in your photos, taking that definition, taking the idea that everything around you is part of the watershed. We'd like you to snap some photos, send us your pictures of the favorite part of your watershed, whatever you think is aesthetically appealing, or maybe not so, if that's the situation. Take some pictures, send them to us. Here's the email address, communications-media1, the numeral 1, at pinellascounty.org. Send us those pictures, and we'll take the best ones, and we'll put them on our Flickr and Facebook pages, and you and your friends will be able to share some images of the watershed with everybody in Pinellas County, so it'll be great. Kind of an audience participation thing we're going to get going with White Array. Liz, I wanted to talk to you. As a stay-at-home mom, you said, how many children do you have? What are their ages?
2, and they're both teenagers.
Oh, they're teenagers. All right. So they have some an awareness of their own. Are they pretty much aware of what they need to be doing, environmentally speaking, to preserve our environment?
I've been badgering them since they were little, so yes, they know exactly what they need to do.
And I have to tell you, Liz is quite qualified to talk about water issues. She is an attorney, and she has worked with the EPA recently, with some companies here in Pinellas County dealing with the EPA. So she is well versed in water quality issues and very well qualified to answer those questions. Not as an expert on water right now, but as an expert on being a mom and raising children and trying to create this awareness. In your neighborhood, are people pretty much aware of what they need to be doing to help out?
I would say they're not too aware. A lot of people are still tied to that idea of the square of green turf that we had in merry old England, and they want their nice clipped lawn with all the fertilizers and pesticides, and that's what they're going to do.
That's the Pinellas County dream, to have a green lawn no matter how much fertilizer it takes.
Yeah.
And of course, we're going to be talking about why that's a bad idea. But I know everybody in your neighborhood is watching the program here tonight. All your friends, all your kids are watching this program. So we'll be providing them with some good information as time goes on. Nanette, we mentioned Tampa Bay Estuary, and I know that organization is doing such a wonderful job along with your partners in cleaning up the mess that perhaps overdevelopment created in the 60s and 70s. You told me earlier on that because of your efforts, because of your partners' efforts, the water quality in Tampa Bay is pretty much as good as it was in the 50s when all this development, this overdevelopment started. That's a pretty great accomplishment.
It is a very impressive accomplishment, and it really is a credit to the citizens of this area and the local governments who've worked so closely with us and with other organizations over the last 20 years to accomplish that. We do have overall water quality that is as good in Tampa Bay as it was in the 1950s, which is amazing when you consider the growth we've had since the 1950s. And we currently have more seagrasses, which are grasses that actually grow under the water in the bay that are a key cornerstone of the health of the bay. We actually have more of those than we did in the 1950s right now. So we have made tremendous progress together. Doesn't mean we still don't have more room for improvement and some tough decisions to make in the future, but we can certainly give ourselves a pat on the back for all we've accomplished so far.
A lot of people live in the Tampa Bay area, and they all have an impact on water quality. Terry, let me talk to you from you are outdoors perhaps more than anybody I know, and have you seen an improvement in the quality of life, the quality of the environment outdoors in the last few years?
I've been doing my job for more than 20 years, and I've noticed that water clarity has improved. I spend a lot of time not only on the water, but in the water. I mean, I swim across Tampa Bay every January, and as a surfer and a paddler and a former lifeguard, the number of earaches that I get every year has steadily gone down. Back in the early 90s, when there was a rainstorm, and if you surfed off of Clearwater Beach, you'd get an earache. That doesn't happen that much anymore. So we've gone a long way to improving water quality.
So a lot of people can take a lot of credit for that, Nanette. Is that true?
Yes, all of us can, and what is interesting is that so many people who live in the Tampa Bay area now did not live here. Most of the people who live in the Bay Area did not live here 25 years ago. So it's great to hear someone like Terry, who's been here a long time, talk about the changes he's seen and the improvements he's seen.
Yeah. As I mentioned, this is actually the kickoff start of a big public relations campaign. I know, Kelly, you're going to be out in the public doing PowerPoint presentations and whatnot. We also have some posters we're going to be putting up around town. We have some videos that we want people to watch. Once again, the theme is Live, Work, and Play in Pinellas County. And what we'd like to show you right now is a short video about how the watershed impacts us if we live in Pinellas County. So let's roll that video.
So how was your day?
It was good. Looks like the kids are having fun.
If you live in Pinellas County, you live in a watershed. A watershed is the water, the land, and everything in between. Make a difference. Keep lawn clippings on the lawn. Pick up after your pets. Put trash in the can. After all, it's your watershed. Watershed, where we live, work, and play. Visit pinellascounty.org/environment to see how you can make a difference.
The water in that video certainly looks good from the top. Does it look just as good from the bottom, Kelly? Or how much work is there yet to do with water quality?
Well, it's not always looks as good underneath as it does on the surface. Right now, you heard in the previous video, Sarah mentioned a total maximum daily load and water quality standards. And unfortunately, right now, about 74% of Pinellas County's surface waters do not meet what the state considers water quality standards for fishable, swimmable water bodies. And that's really not what we want for our region, for our community, for our children, for our businesses. So Nanette said we have a lot of work to do. So the Bay is recovering, and that is wonderful, but we have a lot of water bodies in between the watershed and the Bay that we need to work on.
And once again, as we mentioned, it all starts with the citizen's backyard. That's where it begins. It winds up in the rivers, the lakes, the bay, but it starts in that backyard. And we're going to be talking more about that in a second. But first, we do have a question to come in from Patty is her name. And she says, this is a good question. She says, how much federal funding is available to the state of Florida and to us here locally, I presume, regarding educating the community on watersheds, wetlands, and friendly landscaping? So are there any grants out there, any federal money coming in that we can take advantage of?
There are grant programs, and unfortunately, with the economic conditions that we have currently, grant funding has been steadily declining. But there are some funding mechanisms through NOAA and through the United States Environmental Protection Agency for public education, because they recognize that, you know, for people to change their behavior, you've got to connect. You know, which means you've got to be out there in the public and you've got to be talking with people and showing people how change makes a difference. So, you know, that bringing back those types of programs are very important.
Mike Meidel, Pinellas County's Economic Development Director. Once again, our theme is living, working, and playing. You're certainly concerned and you're rubbing elbows with a lot of people that work here. You told me that things are picking up, jobs are picking up, businesses are becoming more interested in relocating here. But how do we balance the need for a new business to relocate with our need for that business to be environmentally clean once they get here?
Well, and that's the challenge. The biggest part of it is, as you drive around Pinellas County, you don't find a lot of empty land, particularly places where we could put office buildings and factories. So we've got to redevelop the property we already have. And unfortunately, much of our commercial property, particularly the older industrial sites, are metal buildings that were put up in the 50s or 60s before there were the regulations and standards we have today for stormwater runoff. So they don't meet the current requirements. And if someone were to go in and try to redevelop that property, odds are they would have to build a smaller building and actually get less return on their investment. So unless we do something to continue to help these developers to reconfigure our current structures, we're going to have difficulty finding places for people to have jobs in the future. And we're able to do that through some low-impact development design guidelines. And part of what this campaign is going to be about is helping people to understand how to design a new industrial site that can meet those water quality requirements. And then looking for ways to solve the problem regionally, finding ways for an entire industrial park or office park to share the stormwater system. and buy into that.
Do you have a lot of help with that? I mean, is there a checklist, and are the companies coming in pretty good at meeting the requirements of that checklist?
Well, each time a site plan comes before a county or a city department, they go through and review that, and Kelli and her team are part of that review process. So we're beginning to help and helping to educate the civil engineering community on these new low-impact design standards. And over time, I think that'll be a big help, because they're used to doing things the way we've always done them, and that's not going to be good enough anymore. So we're going to be working with them going forward.
And that's always been a goal for economic development, enticing clean industries to coming in, paying an above average wage so that there are good jobs for the people that live here and good jobs for the environment as well.
Absolutely. There's the pollution from industrial sites is the oil from the parking lots. I mean, it's not, standards being what they are now, none of the solvents and chemicals used in an industrial process will ever find their way into the watershed.
Yeah.
But we have to worry about parking lots and rooftops, and that's where we're working now.
The message: if you work in Pinellas County, you work in a watershed. And we have part 2 of our video campaign coming up. We'd like to roll that work PSA for you right now.
If you work in Pinellas County, you work in a watershed. A watershed is the water, the land, and everything in between. Make a difference. Keep oil in the can. Put trash in the dumpster. Toss butts in the tray. After all, it's your watershed. Watershed, where we live, work, and play. Visit pinellascounty.org/environment to see how you can make a difference.
And so there you are. Just as Mike said, that whatever your company is doing to minimize its negative impact on the environment, that's going to help us all enjoy the environment. And David Downing from our Visit St. Petersburg Clearwater department, more than 5 million people, overnight visitors a year, come here to enjoy the environment. So it's very, very important for a very profitable part of the economic pie here in Pinellas County that that experience remains enjoyable.
Sure. And it's interesting, this is called Live, Work, and Play. Because most of the people who live here came here first for work or play. They came here on business, or they came here on vacation, they fell in love with the place, and they said, this is a place that I want to live. Part of what we do is, and we work with Mike, we are the #1 employer in Pinellas County, tourism, we being the tourism industry. About 85,000 people are directly related to tourism, 20% of our workforce, about a $6 billion a year industry just for us. And that's huge. It's just like the state of Florida. Tourism is the #1 employer. It's hard to get away from that. And when we have a peninsula on a peninsula, which is what Pinellas County is, that means water. And that's part of our huge attraction to the area is water. Everything we do and the way we sell the destination is water-based activity. So it's really hard to underestimate how important it is. The other thing that we do, we work with industry to promote green construction. There's LEED certified hotels, Sand Pearl up in Clearwater Beach, Tradewinds down in St. Pete Beach, to build hotels that are friendlier to the environment. Everything from, you go in a hotel, you see, hang the tile up if you want it washed. Again, you put it on the floor if you don't, or switch those two. All the way down to, there's a new program where the soaps are recycled and not put back into landfill. Last year we collected more than 1 million bars of partially used soap to keep out of landfill. So it's things big and small that we work together.
And of course we have to underscore the fact that people that live here and work here, they enjoy these amenities too. How many people out at the beach are people that live here? How many people in those hotels are people that are just deciding to go to the beach for the weekend,
Our biggest feeder market for tourism for most of the year is the greater Tampa Bay area. So people here love the product. People here vacation in the destination, and frankly, that's kind of rare.
And that's quality of life, and that's what we're talking about here on tonight's show. It's maintaining, improving the quality of life that we all enjoy, whether we live here, work here, or whether we're tourists coming in to spend the week at the beach. I think we have an opportunity here to really reach out to people. And once again, we're trying to hammer home this quality of life theme, and we're emphasizing the fact that everything you do in your everyday life, in your backyard, affects the water at the beach, the water through the lake at Walsingham Park, the streams. And Kelli, talk to me about why this is so critical. If I want to fertilize my backyard to make it green, and we talked about that being the Pinellas County dream, why do I have to be careful not to over-fertilize? If I take my dog for a walk, why do I have to be careful to clean up after my dog? If I cut my grass during the summertime, what do I have to do to minimize the negative impact on our watershed?
Well, I think the real point to hammer home here is that these are the changes that most people would make are very small. You know, using fertilizer properly is not a problem. It's when we don't follow the instructions, or we do it right before it rains because we think that's the best time instead, but it really isn't. It washes it away, not into the plants. When the grass clippings and leaves and you see somebody blowing that off the property, it's that kind of out of sight, out of mind, but that roadway goes to the next storm drain, to the next body of water. And those just changing those little behaviors, using fertilizer properly, taking the landscaping debris and bringing it back into the lawn or putting it into the trash, keeps it out of the environment. And it's picking up after your pets. I mean, Nanette can talk a lot about the Pooches for the Planet education campaign about pet waste, but there is more bacteria in pet waste than there is from a cow, from a human being. So it's a real problem. And when Terry's talking about getting ear infections from stormwater runoff going out to the water, that is what's being carried out there. It's that bacteria that then causes those types of infections. So that is why it's so critically important to pick up the pet waste and dispose of it properly, because when you leave it out in the environment, you know, people can get sick. And
we did have a question come in earlier on, I noticed on the blog, and I'm told, Nanette, to give you this question about picking up after your dog. And the blogger said, what my dog leaves on the lawn is a natural product. And you can't really argue with that, I guess. But what's so bad with leaving this natural product in the natural environment?
Well, it's true. I mean, we all produce waste. In the case of dogs, it's an artificially created problem driven by the fact that we love our dogs, and I know I'm surrounded by dog lovers here, and we have 500,000 dogs in the Tampa Bay watershed. So when you concentrate animal waste that carries a very high bacterial content, as Kelly mentioned, and also nutrients to waterways, you can cause significant water quality problems. So yes, you know, we all produce waste, but in the case of dogs, it's just that we've concentrated so much in our urban area because we love our dogs and everybody has a dog.
That's true. Of the 917,000 people that live here, I think 916,000 of them have dogs.
Just
so
or three.
It's
half of them, yeah. Some have more than one.
I want to talk to Jane and Dale over there from the Pinellas County Extension. You guys have such wonderful programs that help people, you know, the backyard gardeners, with not only having a green lawn and a fruitful fruit tree, but also you've got some really, really good programs to, once again, reduce the negative impact on the environment. So talk to us about some of that. Jane, talk to us about some of that.
Well, we have a wonderful lawn and garden help desk, and we like people to come and start with us so that they can choose the proper plants for their site conditions so that they don't use as many resources. Because if you have the right plant in the right place, then usually it doesn't need as much fertilizer, doesn't need as much water, doesn't have as many pest problems. So, you know, just starting out in the right way makes a huge difference.
And Dale, Florida-friendly, what's the meaning behind that phrase?
Well, Florida-friendly landscaping is just teaching folks how to design and maintain their landscape so that, quite frankly, it is more friendly to the environment, and that's teaching them how to do the proper application of fertilizers and pesticides that Kelly was talking about earlier. In our program, we actually teach the individual homeowners in usually classroom type of settings. And in addition to what we have with the horticulture help desk that folks can call upon for individual questions and issues that they may have. And then of course Jane also is involved with training the professionals, with the landscape professionals.
And that's such a big push. I know, you know, we have the landscape ordinance in the fertilizer ordinance in the summertime to keep people from spreading too much nitrogen and phosphate-based fertilizer on their yard. But also the landscapers have to go through education to get licensed and certified here in Pinellas County. So you guys do such a great job with that. I have a question here from Scott, just appeared here on my screen. It says, my yard is completely xeriscaped and Florida friendly, so kudos to Scott. What steps are being taken to educate homeowner associations about xeriscaping, and are there rules becoming more relaxed concerning turf grass installation and upkeep? So how about that? Does the educational web reach out to homeowners associations? And what are you guys doing to kind of bring them all into that web of understanding?
Yeah, well, thanks to Scott for asking that question, because we do have somebody on our team that works strictly with homeowner and condominium associations. Actually, we'll make a site visit and do an evaluation of the property and make recommendations so that we can teach them those Florida-friendly landscaping practices that we would like to see them incorporate into what they do.
Now, Nanette, I know Tampa Bay Estuary program, y'all had a program, especially during the summertime, where you were admonishing people to be Floridian. Mm-hmm. How does that tie in with this whole discussion? Be Floridian is our campaign to support our local partners who have adopted fertilizer use ordinances, such as Pinellas County. Pinellas County has the strongest fertilizer ordinance really in the United States. And so kudos to Pinellas County for leading the way. And the idea of Be Floridian is that we as Floridians know that protecting our water is critical to our quality of life, and we know that using fertilizer in the summer when it could rain any day is not a good idea because that fertilizer could run off. But if I could, I would add to the homeowner association question a note that the state legislature did pass a law a few years ago that prevents even communities with deed restrictions from preventing a homeowner from implementing Florida-friendly landscaping. Now, that does not mean that the homeowner does not have to get permission from their homeowner association board and work within some of the guidelines of the homeowner association, but the law was enacted to try to kind of move the homeowner associations toward more sustainable landscaping, particularly as it relates to water conservation, because water is such a huge issue in this state, and conserving drinking water for our potable needs rather than for lawn watering is really important. So there's still a long way to go in working with homeowner associations. The word is trickling out slowly about that law, but I think that's given all of us in the education field, some added motivation to try and work with these HOAs to see more Florida-friendly landscaping allowed in deed-restricted communities. So it is interrelated, it really is. Well, looks like we're getting another question here, and while that's coming in, we want to remind you that now is the time. If you're watching this webcast on your computer or even at home watching it on PCC TV, and if you have a question, now is the time to blog it in, or you can call it in. We have that phone number we'll show you on the screen. You can call that question in, blog it in, tweet it in, get it to us, get it into us here so that our panel can offer their answers. I don't think we showed the play video yet, did we, Kelli? So let's do that right now. We mentioned the educational campaign. Quality of life is the phrase that we're looking at here, and we want to show you that third video, Live, Work, and Play in Pinellas County. This is what play looks like.
If you play in Pinellas County, you play in a watershed. A watershed is the water, the land, and everything in between. Make a difference. Put snack bags in the trash. Throw fishing line in the box. Toss plastic in the bin. After all, it's your watershed. Watershed, where we live, work, and play. Visit pinellascounty.org/environment to see how you can make a difference.
So Terry, let me ask you, how's the fishing in Tampa Bay these days?
Fishing's always good.
Is it
great.
Really? Yeah?
It is. We live in Pinellas County is like no place else on earth. We have great bay fishing, we have great beach fishing, we have great offshore fishing, we have great freshwater fishing on Lake Tarpon. I mean, I don't think you could find a better place in the state of Florida than what we have right here. You hit it on the nail on the head when you said we're a peninsula. We're surrounded by water on three sides. So, it's phenomenal. It's great. I love living here.
I understand that the scallops are coming back around Fort DeSoto. Is that true?
That's I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
I mean, they're not going to. I don't think the harvest will open up anytime soon. But they are an indicator species, and they've been seeing more scallops than ever before especially North County too, around Anclote Key. But at one time we had a commercial scallop industry here in Tampa Bay, and water quality, the declining water quality destroyed it. And that's why this is so important. You're talking about kids and water. I have a 9-year-old girl and an 11-year-old boy, and they're little ocean warriors. They are so fanatic about picking up garbage and what goes into the kitchen sink, and marking storm drains and recycling. And I mean, you just can't, it's not one little thing, but you got to do a lot of little things to make a difference. And you got to start with the kids, and you got to get them frenzied about it. You got to get them pumped up and turn them into little ocean warriors and take care of the water.
And that's absolutely true. It's the kids. The kids are the future, and oftentimes what they learn in school, they bring back to the household, their parents, they teach their parents sometimes, things that they pick up. And Liz, do you find that to be true? The schools, are they training or educating children about how to be environmentally conscious?
To an extent,
More work needs to be done, or what do you think?
I would say more work needs to be done. But I did want to interject something. We've been focusing on the responsibility of the citizens and things that citizens can do, and there's a lot we can and should do, but the government and industry also bears responsibility for protecting our water, protecting our air. We need to stop building on the coast. We need to stop sprawl. We need to expand mass transit to make all of this work.
Well, let's let Mike or David, did you want to comment on that?
She touched on something that's actually important for tourism. Out at the beach, when you see the trolley service now, you can go from Paso Grill to Clearwater to Tarpon Springs on trolleys. This didn't exist before to that extent. There's an entire network now. If you're staying out on Clearwater Beach, it's one of the few beaches in Florida where you really don't need a car. If you're out there, you can walk everywhere you need to go. If you're downtown St. Pete, you don't need a car there. And in those places, you've seen the little golf cart taxis pop up as well. These are great for the people who live there, but they're also great for tourism. We get about 20% of our visitation is international, and this is extremely popular. When you have Europeans come over here, the United Kingdom is our largest market internationally. They expect public transportation. They expect to be able to walk out the door of their hotel and jump on something that moves and not have to have a car. So the more we can do to precipitate that, it's not just good for us, but it's also good for tourism as well.
Quality of life for us and our tourist friends, that's the watchword here tonight. And education, we're talking about public education, so Kelly, let me give you this question. Does the Southwest Florida Water Management District still continue with their great education program? It says here, this is Deborah wants the answer. Has the state of Florida dismantled and made cutbacks on environmental jobs? Kind of two different questions, but how does that, the public education aspect, are government agencies providing public education and maybe a reduction in environmental jobs that would help to propagate education for the environment as well? Do you see that happening? Can we reverse that trend if it is a trend?
Well, I mean, the SWFMUD, Southwest Florida Water Management District, they do provide grant opportunities through their cooperative funding initiative for public education. They also, at one time, had a community education grant program that recently, this past year, was eliminated. Again, it has to do with the economic turndown and some changes in the Water Management District and their funding that's available. So there is still funding available, there's just less of it, which means all of us fighting for a smaller pot.
Of course.
The state has recently made some cuts at the state agencies. Again, they're kind of going through what we went through in local government a little later. You know, we went through this for the last, 2 and 3 years where we were cutting services and downsizing the staffing and focusing on very core services because we didn't have the revenues to support what we were doing. And now we're starting to see that in the state agencies too, as they are becoming more streamlined and more focused on core services.
But it's such a mistake to cut public education, and that's the first department that suffers sometimes.
We learned that. And I'm really glad that we did. The very first year when we had to start, trimming our budgets, the first thing we cut, unfortunately, was public education. It seemed to be that low-hanging fruit. Oh, we can push that off to the side. But you know what? It was really the biggest mistake because we disconnected from our community.
Big mistake. Got another question come in here from an uneducated citizen. It says, I don't know what that means exactly, but how many watersheds, first of all, how many watersheds do we have in Pinellas County? Do you know that answer off the top of your head?
52.
Ha! Look at that. See, she studied before she came here tonight. Now, this person wants to know, how do you find out what watershed you live in? So they're geographically challenged a little bit, I guess, but they want to know where they are. They want to identify their watershed. How does somebody do that? Are there maps, or what's the resource available?
There is actually a map. I believe it's on the eTownHall website. We have it up there, so you can look at where your neighborhood is and point to it. There should be a number there with a key that goes right next to it, and so they're one of 52 watersheds. If you think you might live on a border, you can just call us or email us at watershed@pinellascounty.org with your address, and we have a database. We just pop it in and hit watershed, and it tells us right where you are.
I wanted to go to Mike a little bit about something that actually Liz brought up, and I know I've heard it from a lot of people that they want government to step in and preserve Pinellas County. They seem to want government to stop progress. Everybody wants government to turn back the clock to whatever it was when they first came to the county. They want the time to stop there. Can we do that? Can we halt progress?
No, you can't. When you look at Pinellas County, our population is about the same we were in the year 2000. Very, very close. The thing is, that's gross numbers, the actual number of people that are living here. But when you look at the change internally, the types of people that live here, the types of industry that we have, changes have occurred dramatically. Every year, we have 43 to 45,000 people coming into the county and 43 to 45 leaving the county. So that's a huge turnover. In 10 years' time, that's half our population is different, even though we're staying the same. And those people have different desires, different jobs they're looking for, different stages in their life, and so we can never actually stay the same. So part of what I want to go back to what Liz was saying about dealing with the sprawl issue. The beauty of Pinellas County is, in a way, we are already built out. And the best place to build within the Tampa Bay area should be here, where we already have the infrastructure in place. We have our roadways and our water and sewer systems. We have the reclaimed water system. We have a lot of these things that are in place already. Instead of going out into rural Hillsborough and Manatee counties to build new development, do it here where it makes sense, and do it in ways that allow us to use transit, because that reduces the number of cars on the road, reduces emissions, reduces the oil on the roadways. It's a great opportunity for us to remake Pinellas County, leave our neighborhoods in the condition they're in. People love their homes and their neighborhoods, but as we identify transit locations, either premium bus service, eventually maybe light rail or something, when we redesign those stations, they should include jobs, they should include educational opportunities, attractions, and homes, and make sure that they're kind of self-contained and walkable, as we were talking about Clearwater Beach. Recreate that in many places around the county and connect those with transit and bus lines.
So it's not so much that we're growing, it's that we're changing, and hopefully changing for the better. I have another question here from John. He wants to know if all water goes to a treatment plant, and I presume that's the water going down to storm sewer. By way of answering that question, Kelly, and I want you to kind of paint a picture for us. We talked about industrial pollution, if you will, industrial EPA standards, if you will, but we also have spent a lot of time in this program talking about the homeowner's responsibility, the responsibility of the individual citizen. Tell us, paint us a picture, if you will. When rain falls on my backyard, how does it get in front of the Serrata Beach Resort in the Gulf of Mexico?
Well, once it falls in your backyard, and this water will seep into the soil to the point that the soil is saturated, and then it'll run off your yard, down your driveway, down your road, into the nearest drain on the side of the road. And to John's point, thank you for asking this question. I'm really glad that somebody asked this question, because in a lot of areas around the country, we have what we call combined sewers, and sewage from your showers and your washers and the rain all go to one point. But here in Florida, that is not true. They're separate. So as that water has run down your driveway, down the street, into the drain, it goes into a series of pipes and a series of ditches, and this can run for miles and miles and miles till ultimately it dumps out into Tampa Bay or into Lake Tarpon or into Clearwater Beach. And people don't realize that, they may live interior to the county and they look around and there's no water around them at all. But they are really the key, because every little drop of pollution that comes from their property travels miles, but ultimately it gets to the same place.
And everybody kind of loves a spring shower, you know, because it washes the world clean. But where does all that dirty water go?
Right down the drain and into our nearest water body.
And there's no treatment. It's straight on through.
No treatment at all. And that's why we have the phrase, only rain down the drain.
Ah, there we go. Okay, so keep those, keep the dog waste, Nanette, keep it in a plastic bag and throw that away in the garbage. David, I want to talk to you once again about tourism and, once again, quality of life, quality of the visitor's experience. We talked about the beaches, and we know how wonderful the beaches are, but what about our parks? What about the inland areas of recreation? How important is that to the visitor's experience?
And it's not just leisure tourism that we have here. You know, you look at Tampa, for example. Tampa is very much a business city. Pinellas is known for leisure tourism, but on top of that, we have a lot of tourism here that's based on use of those parks. So we have a sports commission. Kevin Smith heads up our sports commission. We have a steady stream of people out there getting business for high school lacrosse, for baseball, for tournaments of all kinds, bringing teams in to play on these fields. Very important. The other part is, I don't know if this is true, Len, perhaps you know, I read somewhere that about 13% of the landmass of Pinellas County is dedicated to parks of some kind.
Sure.
That's an extremely attractive thing, again, for visitors to the area. Going back down to St. Pete for a minute, when people walk around downtown St. Pete and they see that ribbon of green separating development from the water, to them that feels like Europe. It's a very open place. It's very popular with Europeans as well. Look at what Clearwater Beach did with Beach Walk. Adding greenery, adding park space is very important, and it's one of those things that's a win-win. It's great for the locals, great for those of us who live here, and it's great for tourism.
A lot of people think we can do without the tourists, but we cannot.
You know, it's a clean industry as industries go. We're fortunate here. We were lucky enough just to have a landscape that people want to come to and empty their pockets of money and leave, and 78% of them return and come back some other time. When you think of the UK or Germany being our #1 or 2 markets, think of getting on a plane and flying for 9 hours just to come to the beach here. We take it for granted because it's right in our backyard, but what we have here is precious, and it's rare, and it's something that we strive to protect.
And we get to enjoy all of the restaurants that are here because the tourists eat out every night. You know,
oh, absolutely.
It's not enough to keep these businesses going. If we don't have the volume that we get from tourists, you wouldn't have your favorite place to eat along the beaches.
And the economic argument but for tourism, every Pinellas County taxpayer would pay about $750 more every year in taxes.
Oh, absolutely. And the penny for Pinellas as well, because the tourists bring in a good percentage of that tax and helps us build roads and infrastructure that we all utilize on a day-to-day basis. Stadiums. Yeah. The tourist development tax being used for things like that. I have a question here, and there was an acronym that I didn't understand, so I didn't ask it earlier, Kelly, but you tell me that, that you know the answer to this. So how do you justify, this is John Landon, given the first and last name, how do you justify the economic impact of the new TDML rules? First of all, what are the new TDML rules? First of all, what is TDML, and what's the answer to the question?
It's a TMDL, total maximum daily load, and if you remember from the video, Sarah described that it's the maximum amount of a pollutant like nitrogen or phosphorus or bacteria that can go into a water body and the water body still remain healthy. So it's a threshold, it's a limit. As far as justifying the impact, well, you don't get a TMDL unless the water body has a problem in the first place. And so the economic impact is to improve infrastructure, to perform maintenance. Taking care of our infrastructure is incredibly important. Treating stormwater better. Those are the things we'd have to do to clean up the water. And so what we're doing is we're cleaning up the watershed, because that's where all the pollution is. We clean up the watershed, and then we watch what happens to the water body, like Tampa Bay. We clean things up, and Tampa Bay recovered. Mother Nature is a wonderful thing, and then when you can do that, when you can remove the pollutants from the system, Mother Nature recovers. And I mean, to me, honestly, TMDLs is just kind of getting us down to the path of what we really should have been doing all along.
Sure.
I mean, it's what we did with Tampa Bay without any regulations. We did that because it affected our economy, it affected our quality of life. It affected everything about being here in Tampa Bay. We didn't need a regulation to make us do that. We did that as a community because it was the right thing to do. So a TMDL, again, it only happens when the water body has gotten to the point where you need to start turning back the clock. And, you know, hopefully, you know, we get ahead of that more often than we get behind it.
And Nanette, I think we're finding that more and more, that we could be self-regulating. We care enough. We have the wherewithal, the resources in this market, in this region, to be self-regulating. We know what's best for our environment. Agree?
Yes. I agree. I mean, people in this area truly appreciate water. They are surrounded by it. It is why people move here. The most popular form of recreation is fishing. So people understand that we need to protect what we have. They don't always know exactly what they can do to bring that about, but they do understand how important clean water is for our quality of life.
Got a good question here from Justin. He says, and now that people understand the watershed and what to look for and how it functions and how it works, what do we do if we see somebody flushing something down a storm sewer, somebody pouring a gallon of paint down a storm sewer? Who do we call to report this problem, and are there penalties that these people have to pay?
Yes, you're going to call 727-464-4425. That's Pinellas County Watershed Management.
All right, we'll get that number on the screen so people can write it down.
Okay, or you're going to email watershed@pinellascounty.org. And using either one of those two mechanisms, you'll get a message to us. You just tell us the when, where, what. If you've got a cell phone picture, that helps us too. If you saw a company doing it, if you can just write that down and tell us who, so that so that we can get in contact with them. Yes, the county, as all counties, all cities in the state of Florida, are required to have a stormwater ordinance. I get back to that only rain down the drain message. Mm-hmm. That is basically what the ordinance says. If you put something else down the drain, it's a violation, and we have a fine matrix that can go anywhere from a small fine for something less harmful, $50, all the way to a $10,000 fine for something really, really bad.
And that will hurt.
Yeah.
No citizen's arrest. You can't just get them in a
I don't know if I would recommend that. Terry, you might try that, though. You might get away with it.
I have no taser gun or anything, so.
I have the million-dollar question, the question of the evening coming up. But before I get to that question, I want to go back to the extension. And tell me, Jane and Dale, how well are people embracing some of these new ideas that you guys propagate for Florida-friendly landscaping, for xeriscaping? How do you see a change in the culture? Are people more embracing of that sort of? You know, it used to be the what is it? The grass, the nice green grass, the what kind of grass? St. Augustine grass, and very well manicured, and it has to be just as green as it could possibly be. Are people changing their ways of looking at how their lawns look?
I think we have a lot of people that are interested in making changes to be more environmentally friendly, but there are other folks that, getting back to what Liz had said earlier, they want that green grass. And so we try to work with them. We have 9 principles that we teach folks. They have to do with the design and the maintenance. And so even if they have turf grass, we can still teach them how to maintain it so that it has less impact on the environment, less runoff taking place.
And Jane, when people come to talk to you about what do I do about this or that, what's the best advice you can give them and hand out, not only to have a healthy lawn, but healthy plants and foliage and juicy tomatoes and that sort of thing? What kind of advice do you give them?
Well, you know, most of it comes down to good cultural practices, such as how it's being maintained, how it's watered, how it's fertilized, how it's mowed, especially with turf grass. You know, the higher you mow it, the more drought tolerant it's going to be, the more it's going to be able to outcompete weeds. So even just their mowing practices make a huge difference in the health of the turf or the grass. And you know, there are all kinds of little simple things that you can do. So, and we can help people. You know, we have all kinds of educational information to provide to them that will help solve their problems that they're having in the landscape.
And we mentioned this earlier about green business partnerships. You guys work with a lot of commercial establishments in Pinellas County.
I work with the green industry, so I'm all about teaching the best management practices for the landscape so that we do preserve our water quality and quantity. And you know, but homeowners and people can do just a lot of simple things to help preserve our water quality and quantity.
And that brings me to the big question of the evening. We've talked a lot about what business can do to reduce their environmental footprint, if you will. We talked a lot about how important it is and how much we enjoy the waterways around us. But once again, we want to focus on this public education effort to the citizen, to the homeowner. And Kelli, this is the question for you. If somebody could change their behavior, just one change in their behavior, what would be the most beneficial change that they could make?
You know,
and this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the grass clippings. You know, we've been talking a lot about doing a lot of public education about grass clippings. And especially when grass is growing at its peak and you just see the landscapers out there blowing it everywhere. Please turn the blower around and blow it back into your yard. If you believe in the mantra, you are what you eat, grass eats nitrogen and phosphorus and other micronutrients to grow. So put it back into the landscape where it's going to refeed the landscape again. You know, it's recycling the nutrients right back into your landscape. It can lessen how much nutrients you have to put down, and it is a huge impact on the environment. That nitrogen ending up where it doesn't need to be, down the storm drain, into the bay, is terrible. Getting it back into the landscape is great.
It'll save you like 1 fertilization a year.
Oh, okay.
In the amount of nitrogen that it's putting back.
And yes. I know, Nanette, you were telling me nitrogen, keep the nitrogen out of the water, out of the open waters, true?
Yes, and our situation here in Tampa Bay and in Florida is different from some other states where people might have come from, where phosphorus is a problem. But phosphorus is not a problem so much in our area because we have it everywhere naturally in the soils. That's how we are able to be such a fertilizer manufacturing center. But nitrogen is the public enemy #1 for the health of Tampa Bay.
Now, I have to tell the people at the blog that we're coming to the end of our hour, actually. We've only got a couple of minutes left here. And if you've got a question, and if you haven't blogged in your question, do so right now. Because a couple of blank spaces on the screen in front of me, and now would be the time to blog in, phone in. We have people answering the phones right now, so that would be a good thing to do. If you're near a telephone, get your cell phone out and give us a call. Or tweet in. We have people monitoring those avenues of communication as well. And we'll get your question on the air. It's been a wonderful discussion so far. Terry, you know, once again, you're out in the environment a lot. Tell us once again how important it is that we keep that environment healthy.
Well, you know, I think that the big problem that we have is that there's a lot of people who live here that drive across the bridge every day, going back and forth to work, and they look at the bay, and they're never in it, they're never on it. So, you know, do yourself a favor and get out and, you know, get on the water, get in the water, go for a swim, you know, learn how to surf, buy a paddleboard, buy a kayak, enjoy it. That's why people move here. You know, that's why thousands of people come from Europe to come and fish. And, you know, we have this great resource because once you start fishing and paddling and surfing and enjoying this great environment we have, you're going to be an advocate for it. You'll protect it, you know. But if you just spend your time, if you walk from your air-conditioned car to your air-conditioned office and you never get out there and you never experience our parks or our beaches, then you're less likely to be concerned about these things. And it can be something as simple as, you know, every day do something like, you know, turn off the water when you're brushing your teeth.
Sure.
You know, give up the plastic bottles and refill them. You know, my kids are constantly coming to me saying, you know, we got to do this, we got to do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, and it makes a difference. You know, every little bit makes a difference. And if everybody did a little bit, next thing you know, we're going to make some major changes.
So play more in Pinellas County.
Yeah, if you play,
I can get behind that.
If you play, you're going to want to protect it.
David, we had a big environmental scare. Luckily, nothing happened a couple of years ago with the Horizon Gulf oil spill. But that underscored the fact of how much of an impact or how valuable a good environment is to us on so many different levels.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That particular incident was basically in tourism circles a Category 5 hurricane just hanging off the coast, and you didn't know if it was coming ashore for however many days that went on. That was unprecedented. It was not anything we'd like to ever see again. but we did have the advantage of kind of experiencing what the effects would be without having them on our beaches. There was a lot of confusion about that. But you're right, Lynn, it did underscore the importance of tourism to the area. And if, you know, we're talking about what we can tell locals, how can people change their behaviors? It's not behavior, just a mindset. Think of visitors to the area as money in your pockets. When people come, we have about 30,000 hotel rooms. Again, about $6 billion a year in economic impact, generating $28 million a year in direct taxes that go back into Pinellas County. Just think of that. If we keep all of these things pristine, if we can keep the visitors coming and we can be great stewards of this environment, this is not just makes great sense for the economy and for your family, but it also makes very good business sense.
And I don't want to oversimplify things, Kelly, but basically it's the grass clippings down the storm sewer that have a direct impact on everything that David's talking about.
Yes, and everything that Mike is talking about. I mean, when we can do these little things to make improvements, like right now we're dealing with some pretty stringent regulations on Tampa Bay. Even though we've done so much already, it will restrict what type of growth can happen in the Tampa Bay watershed. So when we can make, as a community, we can start making these small little investments, personal investments in our own businesses and our own homes that ultimately make improvements in the environment, then we can, you know, this all comes full circle. This is really, it's economy, it's quality of life, it's environment. That's called sustainability, and that's what we need here. We need a good, sustainable plan for our watersheds.
It's the beginning and the end of the story. Look at this question. I have this question that came in. Apparently somebody is a little upset about landscapers in Lake Tarpon. And it's a long question here. I don't even have time to read it all. And we've touched on this before. But once again, and Dale and Jane, we've touched on this before with you as far as educating landscapers. This person says from what he can see, he owns a home on Lake Tarpon, landscapers are the biggest offenders. And yet we see it every day, in the summertime especially. We see these guys just over-fertilizing. They're blowing the lawn clippings all over the street, into the storm drains. How in the world can we get a handle on this?
Well, part of Pinellas County's fertilizer and landscape maintenance ordinance requires not just the fertilizer applicators to go through the green industries training that Jane provides, but also through best management practices, and teaches them the practices that Jane was talking about mowing proper heights and different other best practices, but also how to manage waste. And that is it, the leaves, the grass clippings, and all of that debris. How do you manage that properly? We have trained over 3,000 landscapers in Pinellas County already, and we're not even close to being done. So we have to continue to get these folks into training class to meet the certification requirements of our program, and we need to keep educating our homeowners. This is, like you said, this is the kickoff to our education campaign, and he says here, it's everyone's responsibility to maintain our environment and no excuses should be accepted.
So
I agree.
And there you go. And that's the purpose of this program, the whole educational campaign. You can't leave it to government. You can't leave it to, you know, the EPA or big business or whatever. It begins with people. And Liz, it begins with people. You'll agree with that.
Oh, yeah. And it's not just about fertilizer. Pesticides also end up in the bay and in your breast milk and in your food. I mean, we have been addicted to them for 60 years, and it's time to get away from them, and industry would help by developing more natural solutions to the problems we have. Florida is crawling with pests, and we don't want them in our houses. So
it's a balance, and Nanette, I know you've had great success with the partners in Pinellas County, the Tampa Bay region. Once again, who are the partners that are involved in keeping our water clean?
Well, the Estuary program is an unusual federal and local partnership. On the federal level, it's the United States Environmental Protection Agency, and locally, it's Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Manatee counties, and the cities of Tampa, St. Petersburg, and Clearwater, and all the residents of those areas, and the scientists, the bay managers, the students, everyone who cares about and has some role to play in protecting Tampa Bay.
Well, there you have it. I think we've shown you that it's intricate. Everything's interconnected from the time the rain falls from the sky to the time it washes up on the beach. along Tampa Bay or along the Gulf beaches, there's a lot of steps that it goes through, and everybody that lives here in Pinellas County, we live in this watershed, and there's an opportunity for us to do harm or to do good. And once again, we're providing our audience this information to help you make better choices for a better environment for us all. I'd like to thank my guests. You guys have been great. Thank you very much for being with us this last hour. Nanette O'Hara from the Tampa Bay Estuary program, thanks for being with us. Terry Tomalin. We'll be looking for the next article in the paper about fishing, because I used to go fishing years ago. David Downing from our Visit St. Petersburg Clearwater Department, and thanks for being with us. I'm Mike Meidel, of course, the expert on economic development in Pinellas County. Thank you so much. My co-host, Kelli Levy, thank you so much for being with us. Liz Drayer, from the stay-at-home mom's point of view, we love it. You know, thanks for being part of the program. And from Pinellas County Extension, both of you guys, Jane Morris, Dale Armstrong, thanks very much for the advice you have given to homeowners everywhere in Pinellas County. It's great.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us tonight. We hope you've benefited from this discussion, and we hope you'll do your part in keeping our watersheds clean and healthy. And remember, send in your Pinellas County watershed photos. That address, again, is communications-media1 at pinellascounty.org. Again, communications-media1, the number 1, at pinellascounty.org. Look for your photos on our Facebook and Flickr sites. For more information about Pinellas County's watersheds and the Department of Environment and Infrastructure's Watershed Management Division, visit the website pinellascounty.org/environment. And for more information about the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program, the Commercial Horticulture Program, and the Green Business Partnership, visit Pinellas County Extension's website at pinellascounty.org/extension. Well, on behalf of our panel, and thank you all once again for providing us some great information, I'm Len Ciecieznski. Have a great evening.